We're back. Who was Anne Frank? Check out the board. Got lots of stuff to learn today. The Secret, Chapter 7, The Secret Annex. What was it like to live in the hideout, or the secret annex, as it was called? First of all, the hideout was small. Although on 2 floors, the entire space was only 50 square yards. Behind the secret door, there were 2 rooms with 1 stove and sink, and the bathroom. A floor above had 2 more narrow little rooms, one for Edith and Otto, and the other for Margot and Anne. Luckily, Anne's postcards and movie star photos were waiting for her. Fan of the movies. Anne kept a large collection of postcards and photographs of movie stars. She loved the movies, and one of her favorite stars was a Hollywood actress named Deanna Durbin, famous for roles in films about teenagers. Anne was also fascinated with royal families. She kept a postcard with a picture of Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret of England on her wall in the secret annex. Today, Princess Elizabeth is Queen Elizabeth II of England. Anne spent a lot of time on her photo collection and was always changing magazine clippings and postcards to keep things interesting. The last pictures she had on the wall are still there. Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret. Her father had brought the postcards beforehand, so Anne painted as many as she could on her wall to make her room more cheerful. Here's her room. Here's her postcards and her desk. Food supplies were stored in the attic. So up here, food supplies were up in the attic, which had 2 small windows. From one window, Anne could see the tall clock tower. And from the other was a view of a large chestnut tree. The attic became the place where Anne often go to be alone. Anne and her father did was sew rough curtains over the windows. They could not risk people outside noticing them. During the day, everyone in the annex had to walk barefoot and whisper. No one could use the toilet or turn on the faucet from 9 in the morning until 7 at night. People working in the office building might hear them. They could not go to the bathroom from 9 o'clock in the morning until 7 p.m. at night. That's got to be a long time. Oh, I know I couldn't do it. People working in the office building might hear this. Anne said everyone was as quiet as they could. Trash was burned in the stove and had to be done after dark because smoke coming out of the chimney might attract notice. It was cramped space with just the Franks in it. Then a week later, another family joined them. They were friends of the Franks, Mr. and Mrs. Van Pelt, and their only child, 15-year-old Peter. Peter had brought his cat, Moosey. There he is. He brought his kitty. 5 months later, one more person joined the group, a man named Fritz Pfeiffer. Anne thought he was stuffy and boring. Nevertheless, Anne ended up having to share her room with Mr. Pfeiffer, while Margot moved in with her parents. Mike was going to be the She was one of the 4 helpers. Besides Mike, there was another young woman from the Pecton Company named Beth, and the 2 men who now ran Otto's business. Their names were Victor and Johannes. People. The helpers were putting their own lives at risk. They would do whatever possible for them. I usually came first thing in the morning while the offices were closed. She got the day's shopping list from Anne's mother or from Miss Van Pelt's. At lunchtime, she or one of the other helpers would return the groceries. Mike bought books, newspapers, and news from the outside world. Anne was most eager to hear about her friends. Even though 8 people were together all the time, it was lonely in the annex. Anne had her sister and had never been very close. Margot was their mother's pet. Margot was pretty and intelligent and perfect. Next to her sister, Anne felt she always came out second best. But she and Peter Van Pels became good friends. Anne was very happy to have Peter's company. She later developed a crush on him and wrote to Kitty. When Peter kissed her for the very first time, she wrote, "I am not alone anymore. He loves me, and I love him." There he is. There's that good-looking chap. During the day, Anne and Margot and Peter spent a lot of time reading. Otto Frank helped them with their lessons. There was history, literature, foreign language, geography, and math. Anne still hated math, but she wanted to keep up with her class. So did Margot and Peter. They hoped to return to school very shortly. Later on, they taught themselves shorthand, which is a type of speed writing. With so many people packed into the secret annex, quarrels broke out. It was a surprise that Anne and the grown-ups argued so much. Of course, sometimes the arguments were about Anne. Peter's parents thought Anne was spoiled. So did Mr. Pfeiffer. Edith Frank argued with her younger daughter more than ever. But even if they were boiling mad at one another, nobody could yell or make a scene. It was too dangerous. At night, sometimes everyone in the annex went downstairs to empty offices. It was the same as going outdoors, but still, Anne could peek out the window and catch sight of people walking on the street. It was at night, however, that she sometimes felt the saddest. She would think about the things that she had lost, her friends, her cat, the feel of sunlight on her skin, the smell of grass and flowers, and would pour out her troubles in her diary. She also started writing stories about life in the annex, stories about her childhood, and even fairy tales she made up. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, winter came. Anne had been living in the secret annex for 6 months. Now it was dark out by 4:30 every afternoon. No lights could be turned on. They might attract attention. To pass time, Anne and the others told riddles or talked about books they'd read. They even tried to exercise in the dark. The bedroom was terrible, but being bored was not as bad as the fear of being found. One day there was a knock on the door to the secret annex. Was everyone going to be arrested? No! Thank goodness it was only one of their helpers. He told them that a carpenter was at work nearby in the offices and not to worry. Another time, Peter dropped an enormous 50-pound sack of beans. Oh, no. Look at that. Oh, that's terrible. The sack opened, and the beans, and more beans clattered everywhere. Anne thought it was funny. She was up to her ankles in beans. But making any kind of racket was very risky. At night, loud sounds of airplanes could be heard. Anne knew that the planes were Allied planes. They were on their way to bomb towns in Germany. The tide of the war had turned against Hitler. Anne's hope was that Germany would surrender soon. Still, the noise of the planes frightened her. She would run to her father for comfort. He was the only person in the family who never scolded her. He was always ready to comfort her. By the spring of 1943, food was scarce in the Netherlands. It had become harder and harder for Mike and other helpers to bring supplies to the annex. A year had come and gone. Every page in Anne's diary was filled, but Mike brought more paper so Anne could continue to write to Kitty. What Anne spent time writing about changed. She'd become more serious. Her thoughts were often on the war. What is the use of war why can't people live peacefully together? She asked Kitty. Anne herself was changing. She was turning into a young woman. On the wall in her parents' room were little marks that recorded the girl's height. Anne had grown more than 5 inches. Her clothes were much too small for her. Her mind had grown too. She was no longer a noisy child. Another good thing was that Anne didn't fight so often with her sister. They were becoming friends. Anne was listening to the radio. It was a Dutch broadcast from London. The man said that after the war, diaries and letters would be published. Anne's dream now was to see her diary turned into a book one day, a book that others would read. To Kitty, she wrote, "You've known for a long time that my greatest wish is to become a journalist someday, and later on a famous writer. I want to publish a book entitled The Secret Annex. After the war, whether I shall succeed or not, I cannot say." All right, bye, guys.